President Trump made the surprise announcement after the summit with Kim Jong-un that he would be stopping the joint military drills with South Korea. It also seems that neither Seoul nor Tokyo had been consulted on this decision beforehand. But whether it was because of Trump's announcement or in spite of it, the suspension of the exercises is becoming more and more likely. It's something that Pyongyang has wanted for a long time. The question is, does it reward Pyongyang at the risk of lowering military readiness in South Korea? And what does North Korea need to show in return to make it worthwhile? We'll try to answer those questions and more with an expert later. But before that, let's head over to our news centre for all the latest news updates with Devin Whiting. Devin?
Hi, Jong-un. Yeah, Seoul and Washington have begun discussions on that issue, that is, whether the allies should pause their joint military exercises. South Korea's top office says it will soon arrive at a decision, which will then be announced. Our chief Blue House correspondent, Moon Gan-young, has our top story.
South Korea's presidential Blue House will soon announce whether to temporarily halt the joint military exercises between South Korea and the U.S., and that will include the annual Ulchi Freedom Guardian, which takes place every August. A senior Blue House official met with reporters on Friday and said, although no decision has been finalized yet, South Korea should be able to announce its position soon enough after close consultation with the U.S. The official said Seoul and Washington were in talks based on the South Korean president's order from Thursday's National Security Council meeting that South Korea should carefully review the possibility of flexibility to the South Korea-U.S. joint military exercises if North Korea's sincere denuclearization efforts and talks with the South and the U.S. continue. But he said they do not yet have any decision on detailed changes to this fall's scheduled Ulchi Freedom Guardian military exercises, one of the largest military exercises in the world. The War Games, which last year ran for 11 days, have involved some 17,500 U.S. forces, including about 3,000 from outside the peninsula and 50,000 South Korean troops. During his talks with reporters, the high-ranking Blue House official hinted that Seoul had been in discussions with Washington regarding the idea of a pause in the Allies' major military exercises prior to the U.S. president's announcement in Singapore, saying Seoul and Washington had been in close and active consultation with one another on various levels, particularly on issues of security. Meanwhile, South Korea's overall assessment of the North Korea-U.S. summit in Singapore has been extremely positive, with its key official today crediting the summit as having reset the conditions for North Korea to denuclearize with confidence, open up and participate in the community of nations. Moon Gan-young, Arirang News, the Blue House.
Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says sanctions on North Korea will stay in place until the regime's nuclear program is completely dismantled, adding that there are still risks that could derail efforts for denuclearization. Park Hee-jun has the details.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi have reaffirmed that economic sanctions on North Korea will remain in place until the regime's complete denuclearization. At a joint press conference following their bilateral meeting on Thursday, Pompeo and Wang sounded optimistic about the recent developments on the Korean peninsula, but they agreed the scaling down of sanctions can only be on the table when North Korea has completely, verifiably, and irreversibly abandoned its nuclear weapons program.
China has reaffirmed its commitment to honoring the UN Security Council resolutions. We have made very clear that the sanctions and the economic relief that North Korea will receive will only happen after the full denuclearization, the complete denuclearization of North Korea.
Pompeo also thanked China for its role in making the Kim-Trump summit happen, but said more needs to be done by both countries to achieve the ultimate outcome. Wang, who said the summit held in Singapore held great historic significance, also said it was a path to a new start. Before heading back to Washington, Pompeo held a separate meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. The Chinese leader told Pompeo that he hopes the two countries can continue their efforts for a political resolution to the North Korea issue, and added that Beijing will keep playing an active and constructive role to promote the process. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
Now, he's been to North Korea several times, but this is his first time in South Korea. Former NBA star Dennis Rodman, who says he's Kim Jong-un's friend for life, sat down Thursday for an exclusive interview with Arirang News. Rodman says he's in Seoul to support peace on the Korean peninsula, and he says he believes his friend, the North Korean leader, has good intentions, despite the skepticism over whether the regime will really denuclearize and join the international community. Here's Dennis Rodman talking with our very own Oh Soo-young.
So you've been to North Korea 5 times and you've had considerable time with Kim Jong-un, going to games with him, drinking with him, and even meeting his family members. So what did you learn about Kim Jong-un's character during that time? And is he somebody that would be willing to change?
I don't know. I just know the individuals that I deal with. I deal with sports. And I don't know him as people call him, a dictator or a minister to society. I don't know him like that. I've never seen that part. But I've seen the part where he does care, you know, and I think that was so cool that he just opened up. And for him to just show me a lot of things about his life and his family and his baby. He's not a bad guy. And he's not one that's gonna sit there and say, if you guys don't do what I say, I'm gonna bomb you guys. And I try to tell the world, I say, there's no way in hell that he's gonna bomb anyone on this planet, knowing the fact that he loves his people so much and his people love him 10 times as much. He will not risk anything to do that.
As you said, he has a lot on his plate. He's only 34 years old and he's in charge of 25 million people. Did he ever seem quite pressured or frustrated about the way North Korea is?
Like I said, I don't think he really wants to go by some of the things in past history with a generation of leadership as far as his family. I think he's trying to slowly bring the free world into his country. And like I said, he wants to be a part of the 21st century. He wants his people to have opportunity to understand how the world works. And people, I said it from day one. I believe in him. We trust each other as far as our words are bond.
So you think trust is a very important issue for the North Korean leader?
I think that's probably the biggest thing. He's a new generation, and people got to realize that he actually is trying to show people he is friendly, he is approachable, he is, what he says he's going to be. He's going to try to open doors. He's going to try to lean a hand out. But it's up to that trust factor. That's what he's so worried about.
Did you ever sense that he is willing to change the relationship between North Korea and the United States?
By just hearing him having a conversation with us, we just laugh and joke about sports, music, and stuff like that. Just tells me he wants to go to America. He wants to know and learn everything about America. He wants to be a rock star. It's about time. He's 34 years old, right? Come on, you're a rock star, baby. Come on, come on. So he wants to actually do stuff like that. He wants to get out in the world.
Well, your president, President Donald Trump, and Kim Jong-un, they seem to hit it off quite well. So do you see a budding relationship there?
It's going to take time. It's just not going to just happen overnight. That was a really big step. Them coming out laughing about President Trump actually saying some really profound, really good things about him, saying that we're going to have a really great relationship. And for him to say that, and I think that if he can continue to prove to North Korea and the people and to Kim Jong-un, I think that this would be awesome for everybody in the world. So I just hope for the best for President Trump and the leader in North Korea, and even, President Moon here. So hopefully all 3 of those guys can get together and make history.
Thank you very much for your time today, Mr. Rodman. And I wish you a pleasant stay in Seoul.
Thank you.
And football's World Cup has begun in Russia with a spectacular win for the host country. Russia beat Saudi Arabia 5-0 in the opening match. Our Won Jung-hwan in Moscow takes a look at the action from last night, including the opening ceremony.
The wait is finally over. The 2018 Russia World Cup started the best way possible for the host nation, with them smashing 5 goals past Saudi Arabia on Thursday evening in front of a jam-packed and ecstatic Luzhniki Stadium. Prior to the sporting action on the pitch, there was the customary opening ceremony, but Russia mixed it up this year. Breaking from tradition, the opening ceremony focused on musical acts and even took place much closer to kickoff, just half an hour before the start of the match. The opening game for this year's World Cup featured the two sides ranked the lowest in the entire competition. Surprisingly, World Cup host nations have never lost their opening match, and Russia never looked like losing that record against Saudi Arabia. In fact, Russia's 5-0 win was the biggest opening match victory by a host nation since 1934. The performance thrilled the Russian fans.
We are very exciting and we are happy. We are
very good, very good.
Yes. Yes.
Cherchesov, Usim, very beautiful play.
The next game we will be here.
I feel crazy. Our team scored 5 goals. It wasn't too many times that I think that it's crazy. It's a historical time. It's historical time.
I'm happy of the world. People, my friends, happy. 5-0-5, yeah!
And the best thing for the home fans is that Thursday's convincing win has given them a great chance to qualify from the group stage, especially if they can put in a similar performance in their next 2 group games.
As the first game has finally kicked off, through July 15, there will be 63 matches across Russia to decide the winner of the 2018 World Cup. Jong-un, Arirang News, Moscow.
I'm Devin Whiting, and those are your news headlines for this hour.
The two Koreas held general-level military talks on Thursday, the first in over a decade. Showing further signs of improving relations between Seoul and Pyongyang, they released a joint statement outlining plans to ease cross-border tensions. Park Ji-won has this report.
After nearly 12 hours of talks on the North Korean side of Panmunjom, the two Koreas released a statement late Thursday. It said they had agreed to completely restore military communication lines between the two Koreas, both on the eastern and western part of the peninsula. It also said the two sides fully shared ideas on issues, including creating a peace zone around the Northern Lemon Line, a de facto maritime border in the West Sea, and demilitarizing the joint security area in the DMZ as a pilot program. The two sides also agreed to implement an inter-Korean military agreement reached in 2004, in which they agreed to prevent accidental naval clashes in the West Sea and to cease propaganda activities around border areas. The two delegations were led respectively by South Korean Major General Kim Jong-un and North Korean Lieutenant General An Ik-san. A lieutenant general in North Korea is equivalent to a major general in South Korea.
The complete restoration of military communication lines and the reaffirmation of the 2004 Inter-Korean Military Agreement are significant steps. As our two leaders have opened the path to peace, South and North Korea should not repeat past practices if we want to achieve peace.
We had our differences during the talks. However, both our militaries have a firm willingness to implement the Panmunjom Declaration, drawing up military measures to end all hostile acts, and designating a peace zone will be resolved soon.
The two sides also agreed to continue inter-Korean consultations on military-related issues that were brought up during Thursday's talks. Also, in an unusually speedy manner, North Korea's state media reported on the talks and the joint statement on Thursday evening, just a matter of hours after the discussions had ended. The two Koreas are slated to hold another general-level or working-level military talks in June or July to coordinate both sides' positions before holding ministerial-level talks. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Now, joining us in the studio today to talk us through those inter-Korean military talks and other developments of the day, we have with us Dr. Chung Beijing from the Aju Institute of Unification. It's good to have you with us again, Dr. Jung.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Let's start with those military talks.
Okay.
It's been over 10 years since the last military talks took place. How do you think it went?
It was a good sign they yielded a statement, joint statement. Two Koreas had more than 600 talks, but two Koreans only produced some statement around 250. And then yesterday one was maybe, I think if I remember it's correct, that was the 253rd statement. I think the 1/3, as you know, 1/3 of the inter-Korean talks just produced some statement. And then yesterday's dialogue was just one of them. So it was a good sign to begin another step to cooperate between two Koreas.
So a rare joint statement. But so in the statement yesterday, various agreements were made, such as reopening communication lines, etc. But one issue that was not yet resolved was the South Korea-U.S. joint military drills. The North actually asked for it to be suspended, but the South for now said that they're going to be consulting with the U.S. That was again been repeated by other South Korean officials since then. But recent reports from the U.S. suggest that actually the U.S. have already started making plans to suspend them. So can we assume that they will be suspended, looking at all the signs that are coming out of the Blue House in Seoul and in the U.S. and the White House?
It was yet to know that North Korea explicitly want to suspend the Ulchi Freedom Guardian, the upcoming ROK-U.S. joint military drills during the yesterday's negotiation. But I think that the joint military drills will be suspended from the upcoming joint military drills. It is scheduled on August because President Trump already mentioned in front of the whole media from the outside world, and then it is natural that ROK and U.S. alliance should consult with that problem in the future, and then we will decide in the comprehensive and compromisable ways. But we should think about this. We should think about this. In the past, North Korea argued that ROK and U.S. should suspend the joint military drills unilaterally. But it was but at this point, the ROK and U.S. are consulted with the suspension of the joint military exercise on the basis of the President Trump and Chairman Kim's negotiation. It was different from in the past. It was not debriefed from the North Korea's argument unilaterally.
So are you saying, it seems that Trump made the announcement and everyone, including South Korea and Japan, are having to do catch up and then agreeing and trying to find out how they can suspend it, because it seems like they didn't have plans before. Do you think that's what happened, that Trump made the announcement and then South Korea is having to react now? But actually also at the same time, does it matter? Because South Korea perhaps might have been looking to suspend the drills anyway, trying to find an excuse.
Yeah, but it can be the problem from the perspective of the ROK side, from the ROK. So it would be very big point. But I think the President Trump didn't include the suspension of joint military drills in this past Sentosa declaration. That was the point. I think he just made a bubble statement to the outside world. It was not signed on the paper. So and then it has a condition that North Korea should implement some denuclearization actions in the near future. It is the concrete condition. So the ROK side should focus on that concrete condition, and then we should raise a question if North Korea didn't take any actions further. Yeah.
What does halting the military drills actually mean, though? Does it actually significantly reduce the defense readiness of South Korea? Because there are some people who are saying it's not actually that big a deal, and the US will always be ready to take action when needed, and they don't necessarily need these drills always to stay ready.
I think we don't need to pinpoint the suspension of the military drills. As President Trump mentioned, and then President Moon also mentioned, it will be suspended just for a just not for a long time. It was on the condition that North Korea should take actions for the denuclearization. And then the ROK&US alliance more than 70 years. It has a long history to operate and utilize and cooperate with each other for a long time. Yeah. So just a one-time suspension does not impact the whole ROK-US alliance systems.
If the joint military drills are stopped, and then it can be considered like a first step of Trump's security guarantee that he offered to Kim Jong-un. Would that now put pressure on Kim Jong-un to start the process of denuclearization that he's also promised in the declaration?
Yes, from the North Korea perspective, ROK-US joint military drills has a very big burden for them. They don't have any weapons and they don't have any military infrastructure, just like the ROK-US alliance. And then, but they should show something, and they should do something if the ROK-US joint military drills unfold on the south side of the south side on the Korean Peninsula, because they should do something to guarantee their safety and security. The regime also needed to utilize the joint military drills as a chip to convince its people to conduct and to behave in hostile response to the ROK&US. Yeah? So it was a very big burden, but from now on, the big burden was disappeared. From the Chairman Kim's perspective, he can sleep well on the night, and then he will be he earned a very big benefit from this past negotiation. Yeah.
The problem is, this isn't the first time joint military drills have been suspended. I mean, they were suspended back in the 90s,
yes.
When the team spirit exercises were halted by the US and South Korea. But in the end, that didn't work out because North Korea continued to develop nukes anyway. Is this just a sign of history repeating itself? Can we trust North Korea when we've had previous experience before that showed they can't be trusted?
Yes, in 1992, the team spirit joint military dispense was suspended just once. In the 1 year early that, in 1991, there was a joint declaration on denuclearization of Korean Peninsula, and then in exchange for that declaration, and the ROK-US expressed some good gesture with sincerity as halting the joint military drills in 1992. But it was as you mentioned, but it was repeated and from the next year. So, but at that time there was no negotiations and direct talks between U.S. and North Korea. But now we have but now we face another paradigm and another situation comparing to that past. We have now done some President Trump and Chairman Kim's direct talks and face-to-face discussion.
So you're saying we should give them at least a chance for now?
Yes.
Because it is slightly different paradigm.
Yeah, we should see, and as President Trump said, we will see what we will see.
Of course. Well, actually, then the first step is Pompeo will have talks with North Korea next week. But it seems like to quell any doubts that people have over this declaration that the two signed and the deal that was made between them, North Korea will have to bring something to the table quite quickly and make substantial steps they're willing to take denuclearization. Do you agree that North Korea must take the first step now? Well, not the first step, but must make steps to appease the critics of the deal?
Yes, North Korea should prepare and implement some critical first step to show its willingness toward the denuclearization. Because as we talked, the ROK and U.S. alliance are on the edge of to release the official release to halt the joint military drills. So in exchange for that, hospitality gesture, North Korea should prepare something in the upcoming weeks or some in short period. Yeah.
Let's see what they do bring.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for your time, Professor, and we hope to see you again next time.
Okay, thank you.
That's it from us here at Arirang News, but do tune in to our later newscast for all the latest updates from Korea and around the world. Thank you for watching and hope you have a good weekend. Goodbye.